Hello, everyone, on another episode of Nerd RX podcast, and I'm your host, Barkha. Today, we are moving a little away from the bench technique, and we will cover today something called as biomedical mind mapping. And to talk more about that, we have one of my seniors from my undergrad, Dr. Jimita Toraskar. Thank you so much, Jimita, for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Barkha. It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, and I'm very, very interested in hearing about mind mapping. But before we go there, we would love to hear about your journey and your experience as a scientist.
Sure. So presently, I'm working as the Chief Scientific Officer at Vite Evidence, a company based in Oslo, Norway, where we are building a tool for clinicians to use to find personalized medical treatment for their patients based on their patient profile, biomarkers, and personal preferences. So it's a tool to make a personalized report. It's a very challenging and cool job. But my career journey started in India, where we both got our bachelor's in pharmacy from Mumbai, and then I moved to Netherlands to pursue research-based masters in biopharmaceutical sciences. It was a research-based masters where students get a lot of time in lab, getting hands-on training. So my master's work focused on 3D cell culturing of breast cancer cell line and then high throughput screening for identifying novel inhibitor combinations. And the opportunities you get while studying in Europe is exchange programs. So
Mhm.
then the next year of my master thesis work was in collaboration with Karolinska Institute in Sweden.
Okay.
So then I spent 6 months in Sweden in pharmacogenetics lab. So while all this research exposure prepared me for my PhD work, and I moved to Norway, because that's where my PhD work project was funded. And it was really fun to work in Norway because it's a completely different country. It was a very good collaborative project with the Arctic University,
Right.
NTNU in Trondheim. And together we were focusing on finding prognostic biomarkers for breast cancer metastasis.
Okay.
And just post my PhD, I start immediately got a job in Oslo,
Hmm.
a company called PubGene, who was working on a platform called CoreMine.
Hmm. Okay. You have been to so many places. That's really fun.
Thank you. I love traveling, and it's just different countries have different work cultures, and
Correct.
it just develops your personality when you work
Hmm.
with a different set of people who have come from different backgrounds.
Wow, that's quite a journey from India to Netherlands and now Oslo. Well, I'm very intrigued about biomedical mind mapping. So, my first basic question, because I have no idea about it, what is biomedical mind mapping?
So to explain the concept of biomedical mind mapping, I will break this term into two concepts: biomedical field and mind mapping. So mind mapping is actually a very well known technique in the field of education and learning. So it was brought into the mainstream by Tony Bizan. This technique of mind mapping was inspired by geniuses like Charles Darwin and Michelangelo, DaVinci, because they have some note taking styles. And historically, people have noticed that they use a lot of branching and organic structure, complemented by a lot of sketching and doodling and using keywords. So, getting inspiration from notes of this geniuses in our history, Tony Bizan introduced this concept of mind mapping.
Hmm.
And like it is said, like think like Da Vinci, because Da Vinci was a very balanced thinker.
Hmm.
And mind mapping is a technique which allows you to express your thoughts in a balanced way. I'm talking now combining this technique in the field of biomedical field. So it like I would like to reflect back to my PhD days, where when I started doing my PhD or even my master thesis, we get a topic, and you get very overwhelmed in the beginning. There are a number of articles to read. you have to figure out the details and make a big picture in your head, like what am I going to do, and
Yeah.
you feel like you're juggling so much more than you can actually handle.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you must be knowing, like every
Hmm.
researcher or a scientist experiences this at some point.
Hmm.
So I used mind mapping during my initial days of PhD to just lay down my main PhD topic as the key central theme. So it was a novel protein, which was always the center of my map.
Hmm.
And then I used to make branches, like which are the different diseases connected to my central theme. So that used to be one category. So if I was focusing on this gene and this protein in breast cancer, but I also knew that there are groups who are working on the same gene protein in colorectal cancer, in skin disorders. So I used to categorize information according to the disease type, according to the drugs associations. But there were hardly 30 publications on that gene when I was doing my PhD.
Hmm.
But now, when is completely expanding and there is big data, high throughput screening, there is like massive amount of information out there. How does one handle that information and makes a mind map? So
Correct.
that is where you need technology and you need platforms to navigate the complex ocean of information in the biomedical field and make network associations that make sense to you.
Hmm. Correct. So, according to you, this can be used by anyone in any field, right? Like mostly like researchers, because we juggle with so many articles on the daily. So, how would you? I think, like you mentioned, you first uh, your topic of interest, that is like the central focus, and then you create branches out. So, how further can you go with that?
So people are using mind mapping technology for drug discovery, where they can analyze correlation between different drug and diseases, explore genes and their biological functions in correlation with the diseases, and identify potential drug targets. People have been using mind mapping for educational purposes, like how do you find latest information, news, and videos related to your topic.
Hmm.
If you have to make a presentation on a new topic that you have never uh, learned about before, how do you do that as a teacher?
Hmm.
So to be updated with the constantly new information getting published every week, every day, mind mapping is has been very helpful. And I know of research groups, I know of researchers who have used mind mapping, biomedical mind mapping, as a platform to find new research hypotheses, to investigate their queries and analyze information derived from the network.
Hmm.
So specifically, like there are many free platforms available now, and there are many YouTubers who have gone on talking about mind mapping and its use during PhD. But one platform that I am very impressed with is Core Mind Medical. How I wish that I knew about Core Mind Medical during my PhD days, so everything that I did manually could be automated. So Corman Medical is a free platform, and it's something I would definitely recommend all the researchers to give it a try.
Hmm. So I think it's a very great idea. Like, for example, my lab, we can create a mind map for our lab. And, like, because we are basically doing the same research, but we, like me as a postdoc and other grad students, they have different topics in the same field. So that would come as a branch, but we can have like a one mind map as a lab.
Yes, absolutely. And when it comes to sharing mind maps, I would definitely recommend that if you are sharing one mind map for your team or your lab, then everybody should make it a point to contribute to the mind map, so everybody can understand the complexity of it and try to keep it as simple as possible. Everybody can give in their input, whether or not this key term is making sense to everyone.
Hmm.
Uh, the mind map. So, like for example, Core Mind presents its results in the form of a mind map that describes the relationship between the search terms and the biological terms, including genes and protein terms, discovered through text mining of the Medline database. So that is PubMed. So the strength of the association between the search terms and the biological terms is based on the number of co-occurrences of both the terms in the literature.
Hmm.
So when you explore concepts in Core Mind Medical, you access a database that is structured to relate important concepts ranked by statistical relevance to your topic. For example, if you type in breast cancer,
Hmm.
then it will show how many times the term breast cancer is occurring with XYZ drug.
Hmm.
And those drugs that are mostly occurring in the literature with the term breast cancer will be shown first to you. So
Hmm.
that way, as a user, you get access to information that is being talked about, that is being most researched, and you can create your own map. And there are the use of colors and symbols and more visualization of it allows you to have a memory of it. And when you are giving presentations or you're talking about your research topic, it will always make you feel like you are the master of it.
Correct, correct. Because, as a scientist, whenever you present something, there is always something in the back of your head that am I missing a paper? Especially while writing papers, writing review articles, there is all because there are so many papers out there, and there is no way possible you can remember each and every detail of all the papers. So I think this would kind of give me personally as a sense of confidence that I have covered as much as possible.
Absolutely, and it is so important to keep on updating that information with
Correct.
the new literature getting published every day.
Yeah.
Because what you think is important today might not be important tomorrow.
Correct.
So, having a tool, having the intelligence, the artificial intelligence to help you update that information every day is very important. And just the visualization of it
Yeah.
will help you remember and talk about it and think on a larger scale about it. And sometimes allow you to put in all the pieces, puzzle pieces in your head together
Hmm.
and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think that is where we struggle, because when you reach at the stage of PhD, everybody expects that, oh, you have completed your bachelor's, master's successfully, so you already know how to learn, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is really nice to take one step back
Yeah.
and just learn how to learn.
Yes. Oh my God. That is such a good saying. Thank you so much. Wow. Learn to learn. I'll remember that. Well, I know what am I going to talk about in my next lab meeting. So thank you so much. I'm definitely going to get this topic up and see how we can incorporate it because
Yeah.
just to give you an example, like I was working on this review article and we already had like more than 200 references, and we
Right.
were just wrapping things up and final reading, and just I went to PubMed, there were like five new articles again.
Yeah.
So that's like, to be updated with literature, I think is the core of any research you do. Otherwise you'll be just lagging every time.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely, Barkha. And most importantly is like the user friendliness. I don't remember anybody training me to use this tool. I
Okay.
don't remember anybody giving me a demo of it.
Okay.
It was a free tool. I made a login account
Hmm.
just with my email ID, and I started playing with it. And the more I played with it, I discovered, okay, this is a new feature. Okay, this is how it works.
Hmm.
So the more you learn it, the more you will start liking it.
Right.
So uh, because anyways in the lab we spend so much time thinking around, reading around, and we spend very less time in organizing this unstructured data. Like
Yes.
real data is not linear. If you
Hmm.
are like sitting with a paper and a pen writing bullet points, taking notes, it is not going to work. You
Hmm.
have to adapt to new techniques of taking notes,
Correct.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think, like you mentioned, you have to take a step back so that you can be a step ahead in future.
yeah, That is true.
Well, so let me ask you, are there, in your opinion, what are the advantages and disadvantages you would say of mind mapping?
So I'll start with advantages. Like there are plenty of advantages, and I'm super impressed with how mind mapping works. As I said, there are many YouTubers who have gone on YouTube and talked more about how they are using mind mapping in research.
Hmm.
But there are some people who have talked about mind mapping in the field of education, how to use mind mapping in organizing your daily routine, and nowadays even hospitals are using it to have discussions with their patients.
Hmm.
So because there are some chronic diseases where patients are supposed to share the decision making together with the doctor, with the clinician, and then the patient needs to be informed about the pros and cons of different drugs. And
Hmm.
their family members have their opinion, patients have an opinion, clinician has their opinion. So to lay all that information on one single piece of paper,
Hmm.
to present it to people who don't understand science.
Correct.
So mind mapping is used at such a level of education also to help people who are non-scientific to understand scientific information. So
Hmm.
it could be simplified to a basic level for understanding of a layman also.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Yeah.
that is the advantage.
Yeah.
And yeah, talking about disadvantages, like I see disadvantages are mostly on the user side.
Okay.
So most people often don't have a clear purpose of making a map. So like when you will start exploring this tool I told you about, Core Mind Medical,
Hmm.
you will just get so overwhelmed with it, with the information and the access to how you can group it. So you will just start getting information and ideas, and you'll put it together in the map. But
Hmm.
why are you doing it? Are you doing it to define a hypothesis for a research proposal? Are you doing it to find a new drug target? So have a clear purpose in your head
Yeah.
while you design a map, and I think that will help you avoid making big maps. Like I absolutely think big biomedical mind maps are not at all impressive.
Hmm.
You might have worked hard for many hours to create a mind map containing a ton of useful information. But when you share that map with your colleagues, many people will feel lost when they see the map. So, what is sense to you, what is making a clear point in your head, might just be chaos for the other person,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely.
these are some disadvantages of biomedical mind mapping, that
Hmm.
people don't know how to use it, how much to use it. But people who have used it successfully, I've seen people can export images of their mind map and make it a part of your publication. So if
Wow.
it's simple and understandable.
Right. Yeah. I think in order to share with others, it has to be some like information has to be relevant so that anyone who is in your area of expertise can understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And well, cost wise, that was my next question. You just mentioned it's free, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, this platform that I talked about, Core Mind Medical, is free. I know there are some mind mapping concepts, but they are general mind mapping concepts which do have some user fee subscription patterns.
Hmm.
But the platform that I talked about is absolutely free, so it doesn't harm to just go and try.
Yeah, yeah, I will definitely do that and maybe introduce in my lab.
Yeah.
Well, are there any fun facts about biomedical mind mapping?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just amazing. So there, I read this discussion the other day that does mind mapping stimulate the left side of the brain or the right side of the brain, the
Hmm.
left or the right hemisphere? Because normally the left hemisphere is the one involved in understanding a logical sequence, detailed organization of your thought, and the right hemisphere is more about imagination and spontaneity. So, in the end of the discussion, they concluded that mind mapping stimulates both the brain hemispheres. So,
Wow.
it triggers the logical sequencing in the left hemisphere, and it triggers imagination and spontaneity in the right hemisphere. So you have to use a lot of colors, a lot of images
Hmm.
while you are making your mind map, so that you can remember it and recall ideas and thoughts, by the flashy colors in the
Correct.
mind. Another interesting fact that I read, oh yeah, so mind maps are a great tool to use when you have ADHD.
Okay.
And so mind maps are being talked a lot about to help you organize information in a visual way, and this has helped many people who are suffering with ADHD, who are living with ADHD. You might not need to suffer. Sorry, I take that back. This in turn allows you to process information, understand it, and remember it.
Hmm. Wow, I'm surprised this is not used so commonly out there, and I am especially just learning about it. But when I think back now, I'm realizing that even as an undergrad, I would, um, even in my textbook, I would have like five different color of markers, and I would color code every information depending on what I want. Like advantages would be like green, and disadvantage would be red. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, that would like help me remember. Okay, like just looking at it. Okay, this is something I need to read now or later, and it kind of makes sense. We have been using this without knowing, but not we didn't give this a specific term as mind mapping, and somehow in our career like PhDs and masters, I think this has been forgotten because we just have too much things to cover.
Yeah, exactly. And what works for you works for you.
Hmm.
So and like when you start mind mapping, when you read books by Tony Bizan, like I introduced Tony Bizan, so he has several books on mind mapping, and I have read some of them. And so the idea is to get inspired by his teaching, not to get restricted by the concept of mind mapping. So nowadays people are merging mind mapping with bubble mapping and flowcharts, and whatever works for you
Yeah.
is good. But when you're sharing your mind maps or your maps in general, it is very important that you don't make it too complex for other people to understand. That is very important.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And are there any publications out there regarding this topic?
Yes, so there are many publications on mind mapping in general.
Hmm.
Like I said, people have been using for education purposes, to interact with patients, to even like they are using mind mapping to teach a physician assistant in medical education now. So that's about mind mapping. But when talking about biomedical mind mapping tools like Core Mind Medicals, there are many researchers who have published articles, and one of the recent ones is a publication in Scientific Reports from 2022, where they demonstrated that how the utility of this integrative network analysis helped them to identify novel molecular targets and pathways, yeah, that helped them elucidate the role of standard treatment.
Oh, wow. So they used mind mapping to generate a hypothesis and then work from it.
Absolutely. So I would definitely recommend reading that article.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Jimita, for this amazing topic. And I am pretty sure it's going to help so many researchers and people in general out there. Thank you so much for your time, Jimita.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Parka. It was a pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next week for another episode. And in meanwhile, if you have any topic suggestions, or if you would like to come on the podcast and discuss something with me, please email me at barkha@nerdrxpodcast.com. And remember, it's good to be a nerd. Bye.